I just want to ask, if you're having a spiritual experience, how do you know if it's real or if it's just an illusion?
Well, it's actually a good question. See, Nathan, that was a great question. See, I like that. I like that. Even though I've heard it many times before, it's kind of hacky, but
There we go.
it coming from you, it's actually a great question because you've never asked me that question before. Here's the thing. There's a difference between spiritual experience and a profound experience. Anyone can have a profound experience, and a profound experience can be an illusion. It can be a hallucination. It can be an hallucination, right? When I'm talking about spiritual awakening, I am not talking about just something, I'm not talking about a person who's just having a great experience or having a profound experience. That's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to the part of yourself that is more real than your actual self that you call real, that you call your ego, or whatever you choose to call it, your sense of self, your ego, Nathan, Morgan, Gabrielle. There's something that's beneath you, that I shouldn't say beneath. There's something that's behind the whole scene that opens up. And when you realize that, that's when you realize that whatever is appearing, that whatever is manifesting is real. Because the thing that's watching, the thing that's manifesting is real. And it's so real that you can't even doubt it. So it's not you, Nathan, or Morgan, or Gabrielle, that's making the decision if it's real or not. It's the thing that's actually the authentic version of you that's shining forth, which convinces Nathan, Morgan, Gabrielle that the experience that was happening is real. So that's the difference of that, which people don't understand. A lot of people, they may take like a psychedelic, and then they have a profound experience, and they come back and say, "Oh gosh, that was incredible, man." And then days later, it's like, "Oh man, that was just an hallucination. I hallucinated so much that I had this experience. I thought I had the knowledge of the universe and blah 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 blah." The moment you say that, it's not real, because the experience that I'm talking about, when you have that experience, no matter what happens afterwards, whether it's a day after, a week after, a year after, 2 decades later, you still have the same. You're just as convinced as you were the moment that happened that what took place was real. And not only that, and many times when you have a mystical experience, things play out, like synchronicities will play out afterwards in your everyday life, after that experience, confirming some of the stuff that happened with you during your quote unquote profound experience. So a lot of things can happen that also confirms that there's something going on. There's something deeper and more profound that is beyond our comprehension. So those type of things you have to watch out for too. But if you like, I don't know, take a psychedelic, have this great experience, and then you come back and you're like, "Oh gosh, I thought that thing was real." Chances are it wasn't real, right? Because again, I'm not talking about the small self. I'm talking about the big self that comes online, that experiences everything that's happening within that moment.
But what if you don't do a psychedelic, or if you just have it naturally? Is it real or is it fake?
If you have a natural experience and it's profound, and you come back afterwards and you're questioning it, chances are it's not real. Because the thing I'm speaking about, it cannot be questioned.
Oh, okay.
Right. I have many experiences that I question. Right. And then there is awakening experiences I never question. There's nothing to question. After a while, if you have both, if you have a profound experience versus a spiritual awakening type of experience, there's a difference between what's real and what's not real. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that all experiences that you question aren't real. Right? I'm not saying that. But what I'm talking about, when I'm saying real, I'm not talking about what's real within our reality. I'm talking about metaphysically real, that is outside of your reality. Right? And so there's a difference between what's metaphysically real or what's mystically real versus what's real within what we call our reality. But you can have an experience so profound, you realize this reality that you're in isn't necessarily quote unquote real. You realize that this is an illusion. If you have that type of spiritual experience that is so profound that you realize that all this is illusion, which they call, in Hinduism, they call that Maya. So there's a huge difference between the two. And only a person who's had them both, even if the person has only had the awakening and never had like peak experiences, will know if they awaken or not. But for someone who's had both, you will know the difference between the two, because they're different. Actually, I would put them in 3 categories: things that aren't real, the hallucinations; the stuff that are metaphysically real, which are other realms and other stuff that can happen that's outside of this reality; and then there is the real, ultimate real, which transcends all those types of realities, whether it's hallucination, this reality, 3rd dimension, 4th dimension, 5th dimension, 6th dimension, whatever dimension. There's something that's beyond that transcends all those things. And that's what's called ultimately real. And when you realize that, you realize that you are the absolute, that you are the ground of all being, and everything that comes out of that is the realities that, one of them we call real, but all the realities are manifestations out of this great ground of being. So once you know, you will know. And no one from that day forward would ever convince you otherwise. No one. Not even another guru will convince you otherwise, that your experience wasn't real.
So you know it when you see it.
You know it when you see it, but it's not you that sees it. That's something that people need to understand. If you have the ultimate experience where the ego dies, there's no you, there's no Gabrielle, there's no Nathan, there's no Morgan to experience it. The only thing that is experiencing it is itself, because the thing that it's experiencing is the experience. Because remember, it's non-dual. So the experience is the one that is experiencing this reality. Both of them or it becomes one. All right, go ahead, Nathan.
So is it like being in love?
Far beyond being in love. Far beyond that.
Come on.
Far beyond
that moment.
Oh my, when I say far beyond that, I am saying so far beyond that. But don't get me wrong though, being in love, you know that feeling you get in your chest, all that stuff, the butterflies and all that stuff that comes along with that. That doesn't even come close to the ultimate experience. Not even close. Not even close. I don't even have to express to you how minimal this thing is in comparison to the ultimate experience. Not even close.
I thought it came from love, right? I thought everything was love.
That's the love from the relative stuff. That's chemicals acting up and doing this thing that produces the sense of love. All right? It's one of the greatest feelings a human being can ever have. What I'm saying is there's an experience that you can have beyond human. That is the ultimate love, which includes your little puppy love.
Why gotta be puppy love?
Don't worry, I felt it too. I feel it too. Like, you know what I mean? But it includes all that. All right. So it's not like it's denying any of that. It includes that love that you feel for someone at first sight, or the love that takes place, infatuation that takes place in the first 3 months of a relationship. All of that. It includes all that. It includes all the spectrums of love and even more. But at this point, there's nothing for you to love. You are love itself, because it's also included in the non-duality that I'm speaking of. Anything that's ever happening in the universe is included in this. And you're getting all of it. You're getting all of that, the wholeness.
So what would one have to sacrifice in order to have such an experience?
You have to sacrifice your ego.
And
your sense of self, you got to give it up.
And what is the rewards of the self, the sense of self and the ego?
What's the reward when you give it up?
No, the reward of it in itself.
Of having an ego?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can have this human
That's
experience.
all I know.
No, I hear you. I feel you. It's so that you can have this human experience. Because remember, God is just doing the opposite of itself. So the opposite of itself is going to be limited. It's going to be personalized. It's going to be individualized. It's going to be separate. It's going to go through pain and suffering. It's going to go through all these things.
So the human experience is kind of like a game. You make some money, or you have a relationship, or whatever, you're like trying to gain some, like you got tokens and you lose some points, or you gain some points.
Yeah.
And
you can look at it that way. You gain, you lose points, you try to gain more. It's like that video game. Yeah.
So you see through that.
You see through all that.
The game's no longer fun anymore.
No, the game's still fun. The game's still fun. You're just now playing the game with awareness. You still play the game. You don't give the game up. You still play the game until you die. But you do that with awareness.
So what is the thing that you're sacrificing then? What is...
That you're sacrificing?
Yeah, why isn't everybody just
Why
blowing
does
their
everyone just not just give it up and so they can play the game with awareness?
uh why does everybody hold on to their ego?
Because the ego thinks that, remember, God is playing the experience of being separate and being ignorant and being scared and being limited and all that stuff. So that's also going to include things like fear. Your ego's afraid to give it all up because your ego thinks that what if I give it all up and Morgan was wrong?
Yeah, I think I have that in me.
All right. And then, and then I die. Morgan, you idiot. Morgan, you fucked me up. I thought you said that if I gave it up, this was going to happen. Right.
I could see that. Yeah, I could see.
That's where most people are. Right. And also most people, like you do the practice, but most people don't want to do the practice. It's too hard. It's just like working out. And not everybody wants to work out 3 days a week or 5 days a week or whatever the case is, but some people do. And they get the results from that. Most people won't do it, even though they want the results, but they're not willing to put in the work. The same thing when it comes to this stuff. Most people have to put in the work. Most people are never going to do that. And also the ego, as I said earlier, the ego's afraid. The ego's going to be like, what if I put in this work, this 20 years of work or 30 or 40 years of work and it's all in vain? What if I do the work and I go insane? All that stuff is going to pop up in your mind. Right? And here's the thing. Some people will go insane when they try to do the work. I can't lie. Some people can't do it. Right? But the majority of people that do it will not go insane. Right? But there are a few that will, either temporarily or whatever the case is, right? I've seen it happen.
Yeah, I've heard cases.
You've heard cases, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right? But it's just like any other field, right? That you go into. There's sacrifices that are being made, and not everyone makes it. This happens in any field, right? That is no different when it comes to the path, right? Some people
sacrifice to be made is possibly there's a small chance you might go insane.
For some people,
permanently or temporarily.
Yeah, for some people, right? That's a minority of people. I don't know if you heard about people who go on these silent retreats, and once in a while, once in the blue moon, someone hops off, someone commits suicide. It happens.
Yeah, I've read those articles. I've gone on those retreats as well, and I've survived them, and I can see how they went crazy, and I'd be like, yeah, I didn't go crazy.
I didn't go crazy, not knowing the whole time you are crazy, thinking that you're not crazy. Yeah, I didn't go crazy. And everyone's looking at you, look at this crazy person walking down the street.
I did a lot of crying. That's kind of crazy.
That's good. Right.
One question on these silent retreats. Do you so you can't speak, not even like sign language? You can't be like, hey, pass the milk over there.
You talk during, you like meet with the teachers and ask questions.
Oh, you can do that?
Yeah, they usually have meetings with the teachers during the day.
I've heard of ones where you can't even do that though.
I think that's kind of I mean, there probably is one. The most famous one is the Goenka retreat, which is free and you go for 10 days and it's completely silent. But then you can talk to a teacher during the day if you're having problems.
Oh yeah,
and that's almost completely silent, but you know they have meetings if you like optional meetings.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I've never been to one. But that's interesting to know. Okay. Yeah. So you understand what I'm saying in regards to this thing? There's a lot that you have to give up. You're giving up time, right? You're giving up a lot of time. You're putting at least an hour of meditation every day. That's time. Things are going to change about you, and some people are going to notice, and some people are not going to like them. Like things that could change. Your interests may change. So you may have a group of people that you're hanging out with, and you guys love watching. I don't know. You guys like, I don't know, playing checkers or something. I don't know. And all of a sudden, you don't feel the love for playing checkers anymore. And people's like, whoa, well, the reason why we have this group because we all love checkers. What do you mean? And you're like, yeah, but I want something deeper now. I don't want to play checkers. I want to play chess now. And people, we don't play chess. That's for sophisticated people. Who does that? And then they're like, you know what? You're out of the circle. It could happen. It happens all the time.
It happens all the time. And I think also there's a lag, like you do change very quickly. And then there's a lag, like it takes a while for you to even realize you don't like checkers anymore. And in that time you have like a crisis. And then you have to like figure out where to like how to meet people who play chess, and then there's like reality is more complicated. Like it gets
pretty complicated.
and things get more and more bunched up. It's like I'm still trying to find somebody to play chess with, but my mind is going like way ahead, but like it's still way behind. And like I think that using your energy for the past week, and I can't really say after a week of use, but I think that it has been accelerating me in a way. But I think
give it time. Give it time. It's not a quick fix. So this could take weeks. It could take months. It could take years.
Yeah, I think I'm actually curious about like Nathan, if you've used it and what other people using it, like what they experience, because it's I think it's had good effects and also some kind of adverse effects too.
What are the adverse effects for you? Because there are many.
Well, I just realized that I have these two different ways of meditating, and this is something I just realized like last week.
Oh yeah.
And one way is like a active way where I'm like I'm focusing on one thing and I'm staying there and I'm not letting anything distract me. And one is a passive way in which I'm all these feelings and thoughts come to me and I process each one, and like I'll start feeling sad and I'm like, here's sadness, okay, or I'll get angry, okay, anger is coming through, or like, and then but I try to, and I didn't realize I was doing these two different kinds. And I think that one is like a yang energy, like I'm strong, I'm going to be proactive, and then the other one is yin, and I'm going to be passive. And so usually I will do half an hour of the proactive and half an hour of the passive. And I found when I did the proactive meditation with the energy, it really fucked me up. And then I almost had to be passive with the energy. Like I had to be just like relax and like let it meditate me, which made me realize like what a control freak I am. Like,
there you go.
just, like, letting go. This is just like something I realized just this morning. Like
this morning.
Like I just like it's just in the past week I've been putting all this stuff together. But like first half hour I was like I was actually getting more agitated, like painfully, like anxiety, that it was almost like hurting. And then the second half hour is like soothed me and calmed me down. But I don't know, I think it may have just like leveled me out to almost no meditation at all, which seems like I've been like, so like tomorrow I'm gonna just try all passive, but this is my active part of me is constantly experimenting with this,
Yeah, and you can do that if that's what your ego wants to do. All right, but at some point,
my ego feels like it needs to do this. Like it doesn't want to. It feels like it needs to. Like it's like we're gonna figure this out,
So the ego needs to do this.
That's the feeling I have.
Yeah,
like,
but that's what the ego does, right?
It's like something is broken and I got to get in there and fix it.
Right. But the ego's not going to win. That I can tell you. All right. Well, you can win by like stop doing it, and then you win that way. But if you continue doing it, your ego's not going to win. Your ego's going to surrender.
My ego won't let me stop doing it.
Well, not yet. He just started.
Is there anything to win? Like, I don't think there's...
The ego thinks it does. The ego thinks there's something to win, but yeah, Nathan, there's nothing to win.
Nothing to win at all. Yeah.
Yeah. The ego just has to realize that, hey, there's no prize here. Let me just let go and let it do what it needs to do. Now, either form of meditation is fine, but your intuition will tell you, should I stop fighting or should I keep fighting? Sometimes the fighting is good. Maybe you need to sometimes, right? That reminds me of the story of what's the story? Who wrestled with the angel? Was it Jacob wrestled with the angel in the Bible?
No, it was.
Or was it Joseph?
Yeah. Joseph, I can't remember.
Man, why can't I remember this? I'm a pastor's kid. I should know this stuff.
Just Google it. Just Google it.
I turned my phone off. I can't even bother with it. one of the other. It was Jacob.
Someone, who knows?
Joseph. Man.
I thought it was the devil. Wasn't it the devil?
It wasn't with the
Isn't he
devil. No, it
wrestling?
wasn't the devil. He was wrestling with the angel because he wanted to get his blessing. The angel would, he had to wrestle the angel all night till morning to get his blessing. It's Jacob.
That's funny.
So what was the
Yeah, so that's a reminder of Jacob and his ego. The angel represents the ego, and Jacob is wrestling with the ego.
so in that analogy, he should have just given up and let the angel win?
If he did that, he would have got the blessing a lot sooner. But because he continued to wrestle till morning, he had to get the blessing. He got the blessing anyway, but he had to wait till later to get it. Because the blessing is yours. You're going to get the blessing. The question is, do you get it now or do you get it later?
Did he win every round?
No. Apparently, the angel is so strong and whatever. I think he probably lost most of his rounds, but he's so stubborn and so determined that he kept wrestling. And the angel said, you know what? I can't do this all night. I got other angels to hang out with. I can't do this all night. So, you know, hey, buddy, whether you're Jacob or Joseph, whichever one you are, take the blessing. I'm out.
who was the angel? Like Hulk Hogan? Oh yeah, just like
Which angel was it? I don't remember.
The Rock?
I left church when I was 18. I don't remember any of this stuff. Yeah, I don't know who it was. It could have been something. It was probably the original Hulk Hogan, right? Who knows?
Rikishi? Shit, who knows? I don't know.
Right, but that's what he did. He wrestled with the angel till morning before he can get his blessing. But it's just another example of the mind and the ego. And we wrestle with our egos. We do this day in and day out. When the blessing is just right here, we can just give it to you. But you want to go the hard way? Okay, well, we'll give it to you the hard way. All right? Unity, you don't have to do anything. You just sit there with your eyes closed and you have your headphones on and it will do what it needs to do. As time goes on, though, you may realize that you may need to use a traditional method in conjunction with Unity to get what you need to get done. But in the beginning stages, you can still do both. You can still do a meditation, whatever. But if your body tells you otherwise, just listen to your body. But if not, continue doing your methods because they sound like good methods. The passive version and the other version, they sound like good methods. It's just listen to your body. All right, but I tell people all the time, so all you gotta do is just put on the headphones and close your eyes. And people's like, okay, buddy, and then they go back and you still try. I'm gonna chant my ass off until I can't chant anymore and do whatever. I'm like, you can do that, that's fine, but listen to your body, listen to what's going on, all right? Because no one believes, very few people believe that there's a technology behind it that meditates you. People can't comprehend that concept. Like there's nothing like that can ever happen. And but the technology is really simple, just by using. Basically, I'm using like 63 tones here, but basically just using 2 tones. One tone has a frequency of 10 and the other tone has a frequency of 5. Sorry, am I saying that right? Yeah, has a frequency of 5. And your brain will find the difference between the 2 tones, which makes it to 5 tones. It's the difference of the 2 tones, 5 tones. Your brain will resonate to that. And if it's low enough, that will be meditation. It's really simple. Go ahead, Nathan.
So you say using the Unity is like working out, right? So like, how do you know, like sometimes when you work out, like sometimes you get injuries. How do you know if you have like a meditation injury?
Well, you'll know from the upheavals that comes out of it. You may start getting tapping into emotional stuff and mental stuff too soon. You may start having Kundalini syndromes. And then it's like, oh, I'm probably doing too much of it. Because there's people where I say, just do an hour. And they're like, okay, buddy, I'm going to do an hour. And they go home. And then when I talk to them next, they did 3 hours. No, I'm not saying you can't do 3 hours of Unity. I just don't recommend it when you first start off with this technology. Because remember, Unity has lower carrier frequencies. The carrier frequency is what makes the Unity stronger than other types of binaural beat programs. It's the carrier frequency. So when I say, trust me, there's a lower carrier frequency on there. If you do 1 session of Unity, you're kind of doing like 8 to 9 or 10 sessions of traditional meditation sessions. That's how powerful it is. So you don't need to do a second meditation or a third meditation. Later on, though, because you're doing this first level for 6 months, as you get to the 4-month period, you may want to do a second. You may want to do an extra half hour. You may want to do an extra hour. You can do that because at that point, you can start soothing out all the stuff that's coming out of your subconscious mind or your unconscious mind. So at that point, you can do that. But in the beginning stages, the first 4 months, stick to the 1 hour. Because you're doing, again, the equivalent of at least 8 meditation sessions per session. So like, be easy with it. I even recommend that for most people, for the first, when you're using energy, only do a half hour for the first 14 days. Let your brain get used to it. And Gabrielle needs to know that the first half of the meditation is totally different than the second half of the meditation. There are two different sets of frequencies that are happening. So the two are different. So even though you're doing one meditation technique in one half and the other meditation technique in the other half, you are getting a different type of meditation in your sound that's affecting your meditations.
Yeah, I was aware of that. But I've been doing my own meditation for so long.
Keep doing it. Yeah, keep doing it. I'm just saying, listen to your body.
So, yeah, it's hard to just,
Yeah, it's hard to let it go. You've been doing your form of meditation for so long. So continue doing it, but don't beat yourself up over it if you feel like you need to stop while you're listening to the hour. If you feel in the moments of, man, I probably need to stop doing it just for this session, you can just stop. It will take care of you, right? But if you can go through the hour, you're doing your original methods, keep doing them. I'm just saying to listen to your body when you do them. All right, your body's telling you if it's too much. Or you may be that type of person that's like, you're that mental athlete, so I'm going to work myself through it. You can do that if you want to. It's not going to kill you. And probably even make you stronger. I'm just saying this for most people may not be able to handle that.
Yeah. So do you practice with it, Nathan? And how do you find it?
I do practice with it. I've been on and off. But when I do it, I usually have vivid dreams. A lot of vivid dreams, like, and they somehow come into fruition, I guess, if that's the right word. Like, I don't know, it might be the next day or like a couple months ahead, but something usually happens whatever happens in my dream usually happens in real life. And,
you have premonitions.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I can't really describe it, but like I've had a couple of dreams where like months ago, I'm just like, what does that mean? And like it's gonna come. Maybe I'm making it up, maybe I'm looking for it, I don't know, but usually it does happen. And sometimes I do get angry or get extremely sad or just apathetic, I guess, or apathetic or overly emotional at times. Sometimes I can sense when people are gonna walk into my life. Like I just have an image of a person will pop in my head, and I'm like, for some reason I want to meet you, or like I'll see someone on the news or see someone, whoever, and I'm like, I'm gonna meet that guy for some strange reason. I don't know when, I don't know why, I don't know how, but I want to meet this person. And it's just weird. I've been noticing that since I've been doing the meditations. I don't know why. That's just me. And also, sorry to cut you off, but also like dark stuff.
You off? What do you mean? I'm sorry. I apologize to you.
It's the Canadian. It's the Canadian in us. It's just what it is. We just gotta apologize. But yeah, it's just weird, unexplained phenomenons, whatever.
That's why I tell you, Gabrielle, he's the smartest guy I know.
So it sounds like you have a kind of like intuitive or psychic kind of stuff happening.
I mean, maybe I wouldn't.
Like synchronicities, do you like things connecting, like seeing different things connecting in past and the future?
Yeah, but I always try to fight it. I'm the guy who's wrestling the angel, but it comes.
I
am also fighting that angel night and day.
Fighting that angel night and day. Based on what Nathan is saying, though, and also keep in mind, Nathan's been doing energy on and off for 10 years. He's probably only on level 2. There's 13 levels.
I'm on level 3.
You're not past level 3. That I know, right? That's how slow he is with the energy. So it's amazing that he's still having these experiences. But I just want to add on to what Nathan is saying. In my earlier years, when I used to use HoloSync before I created energy, I used to get those things too. A lot of synchronicities. One time, I my auntie popped in my head, and this is a person I haven't seen since I was like a baby. Right at this point, I was probably what, 34 years old. I think I was 34, 33 or 34 at the time, and she just popped in my head. I'm like, I wonder how Auntie Bibsy's doing. The very next day, someone rings my doorbell. I open the door. It's my mom and Auntie Bibsy. My mouth dropped. I was like, what the? I haven't seen this woman since I was a baby. I haven't seen this woman since I was 9 months old. I was floored. And here's the thing too. She lives in where does she live? In Santa Monica. That's where she lives. So to think of her the night before, and then the very next day, someone rings my doorbell. It's my mom and Auntie Bibsy. I was like, what the? So that kind of stuff. So I can totally relate with that. And I have many other things like that, but that was the one that sticks out of my mind. Go ahead, Joseph.
Yeah, I haven't had a lot like that.
Lots like that, huh? Yeah, and that's one of the things that happens with the energy or even traditional meditation, is that those are one of the signs that it's working, right? Not everyone has to have them, but that's one of the signs that your meditation is working.
I'm jealous of the dreams. I've been writing down my dreams, and they're pretty mundane, and
that's fine. Let them be mundane. Why do they have to be special?
Because I'm an artist and I rely on that sort of thing.
See, the ego. Your dreams don't have to be special, right? But you will have them. You'll probably have some at some point. But again, your mind gives you whatever it needs to give you. Your subconscious and your unconscious mind is going to give you whatever it needs. Because remember, as you're meditating with energy and combining it with other practices, it's bringing up what it needs. It's bringing up repressed material, right? And it's different for everyone. Right. So I think I mentioned last week about having those lucid dreams. That was unique to me. All right. For you, it may be something else. Right. The thing that we get caught up in, that we want the experience that the other person had. That's one of the traps. You want to fall.
Some of the experiences other people have. Not all of them.
Having experiences that are unique to you that nobody else has. And you're going to have experiences that most people share. All right. But if you fall into that trap, you want to be careful with that, because what happens is people stop meditating. They start to think, oh, it's not working for me. So they stop, because you're not having my experience. But my experience is unique to me. It's just like you don't wear my fingerprints. You have your own fingerprints. You're unique as an individual, as yourself. You don't need to have my experiences per se. The one experience that's important over everything else is a person attaining spiritual awakening or enlightenment. All right. And spiritual enlightenment at the highest level is the same for everyone. There are no differences. The thing that's different, though, is we interpret it differently. But there's no difference at that level. All right. But the stuff along the way to that, those experiences are unique to you. And not everyone's going to share those same experiences. Go ahead, buddy.
Well, why would God want to be God in a human? Like, I just don't understand, just like, if he wants, if he's all like everywhere and everything, it's like the omega whatever. Why would he want that in a human form over and over? Like, I just like, why would you want to see his, like, is he trying to see himself in the mirror as a human being, or just like, why would he want it?
Why would he want to do that?
Yeah, I mean, probably already answered this question.
I've answered this question. You've asked me this over for 10 years. The same answer I've given you for the last 10 years. Right? You have to keep in mind, God is the only thing that exists. Nothing exists outside of God. Nothing exists inside of God. Only thing that exists is God. All the stuff that is happening here is God using his imagination or having a dream of playing all these characters. Right? Keep in mind, it's the only thing that exists. Right? Imagine you being the only thing to exist for eternity. And you have the power to do anything you want. What would you do? You have the power to do whatever you want, but you're the only one that exists. It's not like you have a God wife, a God side chick. You're just God. There's nothing else. There's nothing outside of you, nothing beside you, nothing in you, nothing. It's just you. And you have all the power to do whatever you want. What would you do?
What would I do?
Think about this. You're the only thing to exist. Nothing else exists outside of you, beside you, above you, below you, within you. It's just you. but you have all this power. What would you do with it?
It's pretty lonely.
In a human sense, yes, that makes perfect sense. It gets pretty lonely. So what would you do with it? What would you do with the power? What do? You divide yourself. You make yourself a second you. And you can interact with the second you. And you do this over and over and over again until it gets boring. It's like, you know what? I think we need more people. Let's divide ourselves into 4. So now there's 4 people. And then that gets boring. And so you know what? Let's make this a little more interesting. Let's add a little more pizzazz in this. So you divide yourself into 8, and then into 16, then into 32.
I would have stopped at 8.
You think you can live with 7 other people for the rest of your life for eternity? Hearing the same crap over and over again? Like Nathan's heard this over and over again from me. At some point, he's been hearing the same stuff.
Would have eternity inside themselves, so that they
eternity. 7 other people.
They would, they could play all kinds of roles and not get into such entropy.
Okay, so you're saying that these people can just go inside themselves, right? And do whatever. And
interact and share.
Yeah, but that would create the same thing. So even if you only had 8 people, and those 8 people went inside themselves and carried out characters and whatever, they're doing the same thing that I'm mentioning here, because they got bored with the 8 people. All right, so have the power to go inside themselves and create your own realities. Even still.
It just sounds like God is just making a reality show. Those horrible reality shows.
That's
where all they create is drama. Like all the time, they're just yelling and screaming at each other. That's what it sounds like. It's just like.
It's what it is, though.
It sounds like a shitty reality show.
A crappy reality. Actually, the ultimate reality show. Some of them are crappy and some of them are great. All right, because it has the power to do so. It can't die. It cannot be born. It can't do any of those things. It can only imagine being born and dying. So it does this multiple times until you have a whole entire universe, and then that universe collapses on itself, destroys itself, and then recreates itself all over again with different scenarios and different this and different that, whatever, over and over and over and over again for eternity.
I mean, it's like playing the same video game over and over. Like, at some point,
whatever analogy you want to use, they're all correct. Right? If you want to call it a video game, you want to call it a dream, you want to call it a whatever, it doesn't matter. You want to call it prison, the physical prison, you can call it that too if you want. All right, but it's the only thing to exist, and it has the power to do anything it wants. And at the same time, because it has the power to do what it wants, it doesn't want to fall into the trap of forever forgetting. So it leaves itself, it designs itself in a way so that it can come back to itself. And that's what we're doing. We come back to ourselves, realize that something doesn't feel right, something needs to change. I have this desire to evolve, to transform. I go deep within myself. I meditate. I do all these practices to see if I can realize what's going on. And at some point, you realize what's going on. And you realize in that moment that you are that thing that can never die, can never be born. And the person who's meditating or is having the realization, that's also made up. You've never had a realization. You'll never will have a realization from the standpoint that I'm speaking of, because you are God and you're eternal, can't die, can never be born, and all the stuff that you're doing here is made up. At the same time, it's also equally true that all of this is real and you're not made up. And you're meditating, you're doing all these things to realize that you're God, and God has the ability to use the perspective of things being make-believe and things not being make-believe. Both are true. It's hard to tell that with people who are debating, who say, well, one has to be right, one has to be wrong. I'm saying they're both right, they're both wrong. Right? God has the power to do that. I'm trying to show people that there's something called liberation. That no matter what you're going through, whether you're sick, whether you're healthy, whether you're poor, whether you're rich, whether you're male or female, whether you're black or white, there's a liberation that everyone can have. And when you have it, that's yours. That's eternal. Right? Now, that also comes with the knowledge of realizing that who you are. Because when you realize who you are, whatever happens to you, you will know that you cannot die, you cannot be born. You are just a character playing the role as Gabrielle. Right? Because people have asked, what's the point? Okay, so I know that I'm God, then what? I'm like, trust me, when you realize what you actually are, no matter what you're going through, you now have a foundation of knowing who you actually are. It doesn't really matter what happens to you. Of course, you still have this thing inside of you that tries to make sure that you survive and make sure that you're not hungry and all that type of stuff. But no matter what you're going through, by knowing this, and I'm not talking about like knowing something. I'm not talking about having knowledge of something. It's not the kind of know I'm talking about. It's something that's so deep and so within and it's embodied within you when you really, really, really know what you actually are. You realize that you are just a character being played by this actor, and you are the actor who's watching this all happen. It's witnessing all of this go down. And when you have that realization of who you actually are, it doesn't matter what you're going through. And a lot of people don't understand this.
Yeah, I don't really.
Right. And sometimes people get upset when they hear that, right? Because they're so tied to the egos, and it's like, so are you trying to say that all the bad stuff happening, you're fine with that? Yes, I'm fine with it. I don't like it, but I'm fine with it. That's how we created it. Right? It's going to happen whether I'm fine with it or not fine with it. Fine with it. It's going to happen. They are happening. This thing is made up of good and evil. It's made up of positive and negative. It's made up of whatever, of opposites and everything that comes with that. And that's what you are. And there's no way around it. And you can't get rid of it. You can't gain more of it. It's just who you are. It's how you've created it. It's just no way around it. You get to a point where you learn to just accept that. It doesn't mean you don't get angry when things go wrong. I still get angry when things go wrong. That's my character that's getting angry with things when things go wrong. That's my character. The thing that's watching it, the thing that's witnessing all of it happening is the empty self, the empty eternal self. And then beyond that, the empty self and the thing that it's watching, witnessing, collapses and becomes one. And you realize that you're the ground of all being. You don't want to be in that experience every day in your everyday life, right? Because that's too much. But you're the empty witness that's watching everything happen. And the empty witness realizes that everything that's happening is divine and everything that's happening is itself.
So you can experience this emptiness, and then you can sort of like pack it all up and go about your day and assume your responsibilities, and then you can go back to it.
No, I don't pack it all up. I'm in it right now as I'm going about my day.
But also you're not.
No, I'm in it. As I'm speaking, the empty self is watching all of this go down. It's never left since 2008. That's never left. It's always there. It's there if I'm awake. It's there when I'm sleeping. It's there when I'm doing chores. It's there when I'm not doing chores. It's there if I'm hanging out with Nathan. It's there if I'm making fun of Nathan. Doesn't matter. It's always there.
This fucking guy.
As I'm discussing Nathan, the same empty self that's within Nathan is the same empty self that's within me that's watching it all go down. So there's not like there's two empty selves. It's the same empty self watching it all go down. It's just one of us is more aware of it than the other. Or Nathan's faking it. He's been aware of it the whole time, acting like he's not aware of it. You see it? You can see it in his eyes. Right? But no, it's always there.
So does that mean you like get absorbed into the universe? I'm sorry, that sounds like
no, everybody always asks it that way. If you're absorbing yourself into the universe, that's one way to look at it. But absorbing into the universe is part of the story. You are the universe. You're having an experience like you're absorbing back into the universe. You've always been the universe. That has never changed. Right? The universe is having the experience of being Gabrielle.
Yeah, I mean, everything you say, I try to conceptualize it in my mind as a story. I can't seem to get around that.
No one can, really. No matter how we fake it, we can't get around it. That's why it's not, you can't comprehend it. That's why you have to have the awakening to realize that it can't be comprehended. But in that moment, you realize, in that moment, everything is comprehended because you're the very thing that's being comprehended. So you don't have to use your intellect to try to figure it out. In that moment, it's all there.
So is the intellect sort of a crutch?
Yeah, it's sort of a crutch. It's a good, it has its good sides too, of course, because when you come back, if you have a stronger intellect, you can interpret it at higher levels of development, and you're the one that would probably come up with books and come up with this literature and this text, and you know what I mean, you can do things with it. But when it comes to learning to let go, the person who is highly intellectual, it's hard for them to do that. At least that's what I'm told, right? It's really hard for them to do that because they're holding on to logic, right?
So
it's not like you're getting rid of logic. Logic and being illogical is part of the same thing. You just have to come to realize that, whether you're an intellect or not. Right? The intellectual is very rational, right? What I'm speaking of is transrational, right? But the intellectual has to learn to realize that there is something beyond rational, and the thing beyond rational is transrational.
What is transrational? I like that.
Well, it's transcending rationality, but it's also the combination of pre-rational, rational, and the two mixed together, and beyond that is transrational. Because at the transrational level, you can experience both pre-rational and rational all in one, as one thing. Remember, it's non-dual, so those two things also collapse and becomes one thing.
So confusing.
It's really not that confusing. All you have to do is take all things and combine it into one. At least intellect, right? Just combine them. All right. If you have good and bad, combine them. Black and white, combine them. Hot and cold,
or rational.
Combine them. Was that?
Or rational and transrational. Can you also apply that to left and right brain?
Left and right brain, combine it.
I think my right brain would be my transrational brain.
Well, it wouldn't be transrational. Your right brain isn't rational. Are you left-handed or right-handed?
I'm right-handed.
Yeah, your right brain isn't rational. Your left brain would be more rational. But your right brain could be the more dominant one. Because you're a cartoonist, right? You had to have this, be able to do this art. So your brain is probably more dominant in the right side, of course.
Yeah.
And then the structured and how you do your art and everything is your left brain functioning. But the right brain is more irrational. Your left brain is more rational.
So irrational is different than transrational. Yeah.
Transrational just means that it just transcends the two. Right? But from a non-dual standpoint, the two, pre-rational and rational, they combine. They become one. There's no difference between those two at that level. But you've transcended the two. So now you're in the transrational.
Transrational sounds like you're walking into a bank. I don't know why.
Transaction?
Just
I shake my head because I'm saying in my mind that that's some wisdom. That's some wisdom right there.
Wisdom, yes.
That's some wisdom. Transaction. I got transrational out of the transactions, but
I'm sorry.
Let's roll with it. That's some wise stuff. That's some wise stuff.
So you spoke about different kinds of enlightenment, and then you mentioned there was one that you'd forgotten, which was
deity mysticism.
Deity mysticism. Is this where you realize you're God?
No. That's the one that you hear about in Western religions like Christianity and stuff like that. So when someone when a godlike being or a deity or demigod or God itself appears in front of you, whether it's with eyes closed or eyes open, that's deity mysticism. So there's people who say you're blaspheming if you say you're God, because God is not in you. You are not God, right? Because those people probably had a deity mystical experience where they experience an angel, an angelic type being, a god, a demigod,
or like
multidimensional
Mary.
being, an alien, or whatever the case is in front of them, whether eyes open or eyes closed. It doesn't feel like it's coming from within you, right? In that case, there's a lot of saints people who become saints by having a deity, mystical.
Right.
But you can also become a saint from having the human, natural nature experience too. It just depends on what type of saint we're talking about here.
So that's just a matter of interpretation, I would think.
In terms of deity? No. Because when you have a deity mysticism experience, it's a true deity mystical experience. It does appear that an angel or a being with 10,000 heads and 10,000 arms and legs appeared in front of you. And there's just no question about that. It's so real and so convincing that it's hard to prove otherwise that God is within you or that you are God when you have an experience like that. And then you can actually go out the rest of your life living with that conviction that nothing can change you unless you moved further and you had a causal mystical experience or end up having a non-dual mystical experience that transcends the deity experience that you had. But a deity experience is so profound. After you have that kind of experience, I remember once when I had my experience with the deity experience, I prayed like a Muslim for a week. Yeah, my knee still hurt.
Really?
It's that convincing. Oh yeah. But the thing is, when I had the deity experience, I already had a causal awakening. So I was able to see otherwise. But if that was the first experience I've ever had, I don't know. Wait. I'd be a born again Christian right now.
You'd be a born again Christian from the deity awakening, even though you were praying like a Muslim.
No. I had the deity experience, and for a week straight, I prayed like a Muslim. I had an experience when I met a being that was the size of the CN Tower. I tell this all the time. Nathan's probably tired of hearing this, but the size of the CN Tower, and it was made up of thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of other beings. So the whole body was made up of other beings, and these other beings had their arms crossed, and they were singing. They had their eyes closed, and they were singing. Every single one of them, as it made up this being that the size of the CN Tower. I don't know if you're familiar with the CN Tower. That's the tallest building that we have in Toronto, which is one of the tallest buildings in the world. But yeah, you're American. You don't have a clue what CN Tower. I don't even know why I said CN Tower. I need to find some kind of tower that we all know.
the Empire State Building.
What's the other one? What's the tallest tower you know, Gabrielle?
I think we have the Freedom Tower.
The Freedom Tower?
It's not really something I pay attention to.
Well, the tallest tower.
It's probably not. It's not as tall as the CN Tower. That's why you haven't paid attention to it.
The tallest tower in the world is in Dubai. It was in the Tom Cruise movie, the Mission Impossible.
Yeah, that's right. What is that tower
called? I'm not from Dubai. I wouldn't know.
So I'm going to compare this deity to the CN Tower because if the tower in Dubai is taller than that, it wasn't that tall. So I'm going to go to the CN Tower. So Google the CN Tower and get an idea what the size. It's the best I can do for you. These Americans, huh?
I'm more curious about this deity.
Yeah, I'll keep going with it. It was made up of thousands and thousands. So just picture a very, very, very tall tower. All right. It was that tall. And it was made up of thousands and thousands of other beings, and they all had their arms crossed, and they were all singing this sound, like this sound, all of them. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard in my entire life at that point. It had dreadlocks coming out of its head, and within each dreadlock, it had eyes within each dreadlock, just coming down. It's like tree branches, but they were coming down out of its head. And the arms were made up of like tree-like branches, but they're intertwined with each other to form these arms. And the legs was also made up of the roots of the tree, but they're intertwined into legs. And it was sitting in a lotus pose. So as it's sitting, like, doing the mudras and everything, sitting down with doing the lotus pose, as all the beings that makes up what it is are singing, I appeared in front of it. And so as all the beings are singing, he looks down at me to realize that I was there. And I looked up at it and I burst into tears, and the tears came out of my eyes. And then I eventually dissolved into water and then I was absorbed into its roots. And then I woke up out of the experience and I ran down the street crying and bawling my eyes out for an hour.
Wow.
All right, that's a deity experience.
You got dissolved. That's kind of funny. That's like,
yeah, it's hilarious. It's
Wait,
crying,
what?
crying and laughing for an hour straight. That experience was so profound. It's probably the most visually profound experience of my life.
Did he eat you? So he ate you.
No, it
What's
didn't
that?
eat me. I just turned into water and I was absorbed into his roots. So I
Sounds
guess
like-
I guess it was a thing saying that I became it. I don't know, but I didn't get that far where I became it. I just knew that I turned into water and I was absorbed into its roots, and then that's when I came out of the vision.
You got eaten, man.
That was 10 years ago. So that was just like 2 months before I met Nathan. I met Nathan 2012, I think September or October of 2012. This happened to me in July or August of 2012.
Did you intellectually try to understand this experience?
Yeah, of course. I was trying to figure out. I knew it wasn't God, because I've already had the awakening experience in 2008. So I knew it wasn't that. But this thing was so profound and so whatever. I knew it was like some kind of a multi-dimensional being or a demigod, something of that sort. Because I was already convinced that everything is God and whatever at that point. So when that happened, my first thing was either some kind of dimensional, multi-dimensional being, a demigod, or anything of that sort. And I've always stuck with that. I never said it was an alien because it didn't come off to me as an alien. None of those things, but it was the most beautiful thing I've ever saw. I had other experiences equal to that, but this is the one I remember because it was the first one of that kind. But that's a deity mystical experience. And for
Yeah,
I prayed like
by that you cried and then you just basically just turned into tears and then it drank your tears.
well, it didn't drink me. Maybe I chose to be absorbed by it. I don't know. You guys trying to make it look like he's the bad guy.
No, I didn't think so.
He drank me, he ate me. It's like, no, I don't think it was any of that.
But even if he did, that's not necessarily bad. It's just
True.
It's just the nature of things.
Yeah, or you indicating that he was thirsty and and needed my water. I don't know, but that's what happens. Yeah, it was so profound. That was just the most amazing visual experience I've ever had in my life.
So did you wear like knee pads when you prayed?
Okay, so what is the causal again? I forgot what you described causal last time, the causal awakening. What did that look like?
Well, in the causal awakening, there's no shape or form. So that's when you realize that, I guess you can realize that when you in that experience, you're a God. You realize that you're God in the causal awakening. But in this case, you realize that there's no shape or form, as opposed to the non-dual awakening where shape and form becomes one thing, right?
Okay.
Shape and form and no shape and form becomes one thing. But in the causal, there is no shape or form. In the causal, you may have the realization of cause and effect. You may have the realization that you are the cause of everything that exists in the universe. You are the one that manifests. But in the non-dual experience, you're not manifesting anything per se. The thing that is manifesting, the thing that is manifesting and the thing being manifested are the same thing. But in the causal experience, you may not experience both. You may just experience yourself being the cause of everything that exists.
So in the causal, you're sort of a manifester. You're creating.
You can say that, where you are the manifester. You are the creator. You are the thing that's thinking. You realize that you're the one that's thinking up the dream. You're the one having the story, and the list goes on. Everything's an expression of you.
Everything
Again, you as Gabrielle, but you as God.
So I'm the genie. Sorry.
Yeah, you're the genie. It's one way.
Causal seems more egoic than non-dual or something.
No. It's not that it's egoic. It's just a fact. That's just what you're doing. At that stage, you are doing that. But again, I'm not talking about you, Gabrielle, though.
Mm-hmm.
You're thinking about you, Gabrielle, that'd be egoic. But I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the essence of who you are. The essence, the same essence is within me, the same essence is within Nathan, the same essence is within your chair, your wall, the pictures on your wall, everything. So not you, Gabrielle, is manifesting everything in existence. God is manifesting everything in existence. That's the difference.
And then, okay, let's review. You said there was the subtle. Is that correct?
A subtle experience is like astral traveling, astral projection, lucid dreaming, sort of thing. That's in the subtle.
So that would be related to the subtle body then.
Yeah, your subtle body's having those experiences in your dream. But again, they're not like bodies. It's just a word that's used, just like when someone says a body of work. Or, you know,
they're not like bodies.
It's a body of that. So it's more like that as opposed to it being actual bodies that you possess.
This is like Vedanta or something. What is it?
Well, Advaita Vedanta doesn't care about any of that stuff. Advaita Vedanta is saying everything is God. Everything is the ground of all being. Right? If you go to the other traditions, like the yogic traditions, then they have the chakras. If you go in the Buddhist tradition, they get rid of everything too, but on the opposite end, everything is the emptiness, the void, the sunyata, anatta. Right? So they're all different. And when it comes to Vedanta, Vedanta has like at least 6 different schools. So Vedanta gets tricky too. If you get into Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta says everything is absolute, is the absolute. But Vedanta is tricky. Advaita Vedanta is tricky because it's non-dual and it's monism, it's absolute monism. So non-dual is no distinction, but monism, everything is of the same source. But then there's another Vedanta tradition where it's all about that in their tradition, everything is dual. There's no such thing as non-dual, it's all dual. They believe themselves to be the most realistic school out of the groups because they say everything is dual. If I talk to you, you're across from me, you're outside of me, you're dual. They also believe that the soul and the Atman and Brahman are separate because in their tradition, everything is dual because in this reality that we're experiencing, everything is dual and they stick to that. There's another tradition where they believe in non-duality, but there's still a small u and then there's a big U and the small u can merge with the big U. And then there's another tradition where the small u is no greater or any or less than the big U. So soul, matter, so matter, if you want to call that the universe, soul, the individual person, the subtle thing within each individual, and God, Brahman, are all equally absolute in their own right. You have so different, it gets really confusing because every one of these schools have a different take on it. Enlightenment doesn't mean perfection. It just means you realize who you are.
Okay. All right.
As he ponders on the idea of that.
Wow.
Okay, so we went through psychic, subtle, causal, non-dual, gross, which I sort of have a slight kind of almost grasp on. What about the nature one?
What about it?
What does that look like?
Well, that's in that experience, you're experiencing either nature itself or the nature of man. Right? So that could be anything that happens in the gross realm, anything that happens in the gross realm, but you're experiencing it from a spiritual standpoint.
So I guess the gross realm, I understand that to be like the body, like
the body, physical matter.
Like this all this
dense.
This toilet paper here.
Right. Phone. My clothes, my skin, everything's dense. That's the gross realm, the physical gross realm. So in the nature experience, you can have the experience of either things happening to yourself or things happening to other people or other animals, insects, microscopic creatures, reptiles, objects like rocks, dirt, trees, leaves, grass, the river, the ocean, sunlight,
So
all that stuff can be experienced, you know, in the nature mystical realms.
so it's psychic in a way, or telepathic?
It's not, well,
Not telepathic, but
it could be. It could be. I don't believe any of the realms are pure in itself. Like when you're having a nature experience, it's all nature mysticism. It could be crossed within, you know, with subtle and causal and things like that. That could happen too. But in the nature mysticism, you're experiencing nature as it is, but from a real deep spiritual perspective. So you get to experience Saguna Brahman or Saguna Brahman, which is God with attributes. And then when you experience the higher up, like in the non-dual, you're experiencing Nirgana Brahman, which is God without attributes. So in the nature realm, you can experience everything being one in that realm. But what we're saying is that's not the absolute. That's just one of the realms. And that, don't get me wrong, that realm is, as I said last week, is phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal to experience everything in that realm. Right? But don't fall for believing that's the absolute. It's not the absolute. That's
no,
not Brahman. Go ahead, Nathan.
What is it about having a near-death experience that makes people want to go into spirituality and meditating?
Well, when you get to a point where you almost lost your life, or you temporarily lost your life, when you come back into your body, when the ego comes back online, the ego says, holy shit, I almost died. I'm going to do something about it. It's a shock to the system. Like, people don't understand what it's like to have an ego death or to have a near-death experience where you just about to lose everything. In the ego death experience, of course, it seems like temporarily you lost everything because there's nothing there. You're totally gone from the mind. You're totally, and that dissolves into the nothingness of everything that there is. When you come back, the post-awakening, it's a shock to your system. Most people do change their lives after an experience like that.
I mean,
it's the same with the near-death experience, but I've never had a near-death experience. So that's my assumption based on if someone came close to losing their life, or they did lose their life temporarily, but somehow they came back to life for whatever reason. People call that a miracle or whatever of some sort. So I can just imagine, based on me having a full ego death, I think I understand the near-death experience from that standpoint. But I've never had an actual near-death experience. So
I have heard that, and then I can't really cite it, but we have the endogenous DMT in our pineal gland, and when we die,
gland is also in your spine
and yeah, in the cerebral
fluids,
spinal fluid.
Yeah, little bits of it is in your blood.
And when we die, it gets sort of released, and that could be a Kundalini experience.
It can be.
But so then when you have the near-death experience, you have this sort of DMT, or I mean, this is just one way of looking at it.
No, I think you hit it on the nose. Maybe what happens during the near-death experience, because if you're releasing this energy, which only happens at the moment of conception and the moment of your death, that would make sense. So if you had a near-death experience where the body believed that it's dead, then it would be releasing that energy. So that could be it. So releasing the energy, which could end up being a Kundalini experience, a Kundalini awakening, which wakes people up. So yeah, I think you hit it on the nose. I think that's what it is. It's only because I've gone through that personally.
Yeah.
So unless me having the non-dual, me having the ego death is comparison to that. I just can't confirm it because I've never been in a situation where I almost lost my life or lost my life and came back to life. I've never done that.
I've had one, I think.
Oh yeah, and you're still the way you are? I really, really doubt it.
I've changed from that moment.
I highly.
Do you want to hear? You guys want to hear what happened? It's like the weirdest story. All right, so I remember like maybe 5 years ago or something like that. I think I've told you this before. I don't know if it's so. It was in the summertime, and I had I couldn't breathe because I was filled with so much phlegm to the point where I couldn't breathe, and it was coming out, and I was so congested, but I was so tired because I didn't want to go to sleep because I didn't want to like suffocate myself. So I passed out, and I thought I was dreaming, but I don't think I was dreaming. I think all the phlegm in my throat was like blocking my airways, and I don't think I was breathing at that point because usually when you dream, you see dreams, right? You see something, but all I saw was darkness. I didn't see anything for like 10 minutes, but I was aware of it. I'm like, I felt like I was just floating in nothingness. And it was extremely weird. And I'm like, what's going on? Why am I still thinking? What's happening? And all of a sudden, this paramedic came as like an angel. It's just the weirdest shit. I swear to God. He's like, Nathan, I'm here to save you. You have more to do in this life. I'm gonna give you. And then he stuck a needle in my throat, and it was painful. I never felt so much pain in my life.
You sure it was a needle?
It was a needle.
Just asking.
This horrendous pain in my throat and my lungs and everywhere else. And I just came back. I can't remember the speech he said, but it was like one of those profound speeches that only you can like see. You know, it was one of those. It was a white guy wearing a paramedic suit. It was the weirdest shit.